Well, hey there, everyone. I am live with, well, I guess 2/3 of the Lionesses are live. Right, Adrian? It's nice to see you this Thursday late afternoon for me.
It's nice to see you too. I think this is so fun. Let's, interact in between our channels and talk about really good things like primal eating and how it affects our family. I love it.
Yeah, what a great topic. Little did I know when I got into this, proper human diet, as Dr. Berry terms it 2 years ago. I can't believe it's been 2 years. What a profound effect it would end up having on myself and then later my family, specifically one of my sons. I just went in thinking maybe I'll lose a little weight. And boy, has my life changed in like major ways since starting this way of eating 2 years ago. But I know you have 4 kids, so you have double the amount of kids I have. And do you, how do you feed those kids? Are they carnivore, all of them, or are they meat based, or have you changed their diet since you went carnivore?
I think this is going to be such an interesting talk because we are giving our kids these foods for totally different reasons. Like, I have 4 different kids and I have 4 different reasons why I feed them a more meat-based diet. Is it perfect? No. And it's gotten even worse since we started school, which we'll get into. But also, you've got the older kids, I've got the younger kids. And so we can just really discuss like the difference and how it affects the different stages of the life. And also, when we talk about the different conditions, like for me, because our world is causing our kids and ourselves so many issues that are not natural to us because of our unnatural diet, our unnatural air, our unnatural water, all the things that we're being exposed to, the LED lighting, the EMF everywhere, all the things. Um, this is one tool that helps bring those kids' bodies back to homeostasis. And unfortunately, because there's so much being thrown at all of us, sometimes it takes more tools. But tonight we'll talk about why this is a really base tool. Start here. This is a great tool. Give your kids more meat, and we'll talk about why.
Yeah, like I hear you on all those other things. And I think that, if I turned off all of the LEDs and the EMFs and all of that, who knows, maybe there would be even more improvement. It was one thing tackling my teenagers' diet. Like it's another thing to try to take away their technology.
Well,
I'm
there's
not
so many things just out of our control.
100%, 100%. So I am a little bit envious that you discovered this with, your 2 younger ones are so young still. And I feel like, to some extent, if I had been able to start when my son was younger, because he has changed, tremendously in this last year. But I think some of the things are habit, like the way that he looks at school and all of that is just really ingrained. And that is something that I think if I would have started him a lot younger, maybe his whole school experience, I think would have been markedly different. Of course, I don't have a time machine. I don't know if you do. If you do, can I borrow it? We can try that experiment out.
I
Um,
wish I'd like to redo a marriage, please.
oh my gosh, that's funny. Well, so my kids both actually have ADHD, and you usually hear me talking about one because it's the one that has been willing to change his diet. The other one has not changed his diet at all and is not willing to at this point in time. So when I talk about this, I tend to talk about my younger son. His name is Zach, and I have a few pictures because we're going to talk about some behaviors. And you talk about these things, and it's like I've gotten a lot of positive comments, but then a lot of like, you're outing your son on the internet and that's rude and you shouldn't be doing that, and I wonder how he feels about this. Well, he's come online and talked with me live, about this, or in a couple of videos as well. But he's not like, I'm focusing on the negatives, obviously, to show like these are the things we were dealing with, and then this is how it's changed. But obviously it wasn't all negative. I just wanted to pop up some recent pictures. So here's one of Zach and me. I believe this was at a baseball game. This is him when we were celebrating his 16th birthday. He was just about to get his car. We are giving him my other son's car, and he's working on his driver's ed now. So we had it parked out in the parking lot with a big bow on it. So he was like, at this point, I don't think had seen the car yet, but that was a fun celebration. And then this is him right here in the middle with his drum, because he plays in the high school band. So those are some recent pictures of my kid, and his life has just changed so much for the better. But I wanted to pop those pictures up there and just say, like, he's okay with me sharing his story. He actually prefers if I do it. He doesn't like to talk about the diet. He's made that very clear. Like, even in his 504 meeting at school that we had recently, he was like, let's just not talk about the food, okay? I think he's worried, maybe what the people at school, might think. But even as a younger child, when we were having all the difficulties, he was such when he wasn't flipping out and having a meltdown, he was such a sweet, loving kiddo. And it was just like, that was just punctuated with these episodes. It was like a switch would flip and he would almost become this different, person. I don't know. How do you feel? Do you want me to show? I know you have some pictures in here of your kiddos. Did you want me to pop up a few of those too?
Yeah, if you want to just pop them up so people can just kind of see as I talk here.
Yeah.
I have a lot of just pop one of the 4 of them up. You'll see my big guy. You can't see this in the picture, but he really struggles with sensory. And as you can see, his metabolism is busted. The guy isn't sitting and eating whole pizzas, but his metabolism is busted. He's got skin issues, eczema. He did not really speak until he was older than 5. Just gonna scoot over here a little bit. He was older than 5. He has had ENT issues. He's had tubes like 10 times. Now he has permanent tubes. He's even right now struggling with an ear infection, which makes no sense because we haven't been swimming. But then I have my daughter, and part of the reason that she needs help is because with her preteen hormones, she is just a crabby bee, and now she's getting the pimples, and she's totally addicted to carbs. So there's a reason that I'm trying to direct her to more meat. Then you go to Porter, he just turned 6. Porter is a lot like your son. And when you tell your story, it makes me want to cry, because when I talk to other people, they just say things to me like, well, that's a lack of parenting.
Yes. Oh my
They
gosh. Yep.
say, clearly you just need to set better boundaries. You need to be more strict. You need to be more consistent with him. It's always a me problem. And on top of this, I'm dying. I can actually hear him, and I kind of want to go get him because he's pounding against the door, 2 doors down, because they said you have to stay in this room and hang out and play with the toys while mom is recording. And I kind of want to go give his little nervous system some relief. So if it doesn't stop in the next 3 minutes, I might have to go do that. But we can go further into that, because that is like one of the number one things that we are dealing with right now, trying to overcome. And I personally think for him, and maybe for David, it's going to need more tools, like us moving into this home that doesn't have any water damage. Well, it didn't until we moved in, but that's another story. It's been a big deal for Porter. He's been, I would say, at least 50% better, if not closer to 80% better, since we moved into this home. So we can go into those boys because they have so much in common. And it's just so important that boys like that you are not inflaming them with plants, with processed foods, with chemicals and unnatural things. They're already disrupted, and their body just needs some rest. Their body just needs some nourishment. And this is just a really important tool for boys like that. And then my littlest, he's part of the reason I'm carnivore, because we birthed him at home, and the midwife said, I said, hey, I have a history of preeclampsia, anemia, just incredible weight gain, infertility, no milk supply. I went on and on and on. And she said, oh, you need to eat salt. You need to eat a bunch of red meat, eggs, and butter. And I was like, what about the rest? And she was like, if you have room. But she was like, I want you to be nourished. What I wish I would have uploaded, but you guys are all probably glad I didn't, is Vollmer's placenta. Despite me getting the most horrific case, they were going to ventilate me, of COVID while pregnant with Vollmer, he came out a good size, and his placenta was purple and red. It was like so alive. It didn't die off like some issues that happened with that horrible, horrible virus. And then after that, learning after him with my autoimmune condition, his first foods were meat. He mostly ate meat, 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 meat. And to this day, he's mostly meat, but then we've let him be babysat here and there, and then they add the foods in, which we'll get into that topic soon. So anyway, I have lots of reasons. To me, it is a base mechanism to help the kids. And I just think of their brains. Their brains don't need seed oils. Their brains don't need chemicals. Their brains don't need Doritos. Their brains need animal fats. Their brains need butter and eggs and red meat. Their bodies need that nourishment so they can grow strong bones and get tall. Have you heard about the thin skull thing?
No, I have not, but can I tell you my younger son has caught up in height to my older son in the last year? I wonder if there's a connection there
With
because
the nourishment. They're
nourishment.
saying that the reason our kids are getting so many more concussions, they've been playing football forever. They've had wrestling forever. But they're saying the reason our kids are getting concussions from these same exact sports is because their skulls are literally thinner from malnourishment.
That's interesting. I don't doubt it. I know what I see as a teacher, a 25-year veteran teacher, the kids bring nothing healthy, nothing. I literally, it's a big, huge family size bag of chips that they bring. Like that's their snack, like a big, that's their snack. And that's what, they're sending them from home. Not to mention that most of them are eating, the cafeteria food, which is with all the stuff you just said, with the seed oils and the highly processed and the plant-based, highly processed plant-based food is basically what they're being fed. And then what they're bringing from home is definitely not any better. It's like just the very processed stuff from those center aisles of the grocery store. It's, Takis and Gatorade.
Yes, Takis.
Every
When
day,
I
every
went
day.
on vacation, the teacher messaged me, said, Porter's having a horrible time since you were gone. Like he's reverted. And she said, and in his lunchbox today were 2 donuts and a bag of hot Doritos. And I was like, because I was gone and my husband was in charge. I love him, but yeah.
Yeah, he's not necessarily on board with it, and that stuff is around. Yeah, that's one of the blessings. I mean, it's like a blessing and a curse. It's a double-edged sword, right? So my son is older. He's not so dependent, and so it's like now that he knows what to do, if I'm not there, he can go grab himself. He knows how to make his carnivore pizza pockets. He can just go do that, or he knows what's there. So even though we have, food that neither one of us eat in the house because like you, my husband is very, standard American type person in his diet. And my other son as well. He doesn't go for that stuff anymore. And he used to eat it right along with all four of us, right? Used to eat that stuff. And even though it's still there, it didn't take long, and he just doesn't go for it anymore. He'll just reach for the stuff he knows he can have, or if there's nothing that he feels like he can do on his own, he'll ask me to, make me some eggs or something, right? So he doesn't even ask or try to get away with eating the other stuff. It's really been amazing to see, that lack of struggle. It's like his body knows, like now that he switched to eating that, his body knows, and he doesn't even want the other stuff. But I want to talk about what I mean when I said struggle, because like you said, you have a son, basically 10 years younger than mine, but it's like looking at a little twin in the behaviors of, the things that they both would do. So my son used to have a really hard time following any directions from any adult, and it started in preschool. He probably did it. His great grandma would babysit him before he went to preschool. And honestly, I think he would give her a really hard time, and she just wouldn't tell us. In retrospect, I think that was happening. So I didn't know that it was happening. But then when he got to preschool, and it's like not a family member anymore, and I'm getting this, like, we're having to pick him up and carry him to the office multiple times a week, because by the end of the day, he was like on the floor, rolling around, screaming, kicking, yelling, and, you know, basically having a major meltdown. And that would happen on a regular basis, to the extent that I was worried they might, because, you know, at preschool wasn't free, where we sent him, and they had, it was a private preschool, and they could have easily said, don't bring your kid here anymore. And sometimes I'm shocked that they didn't, you know, do that. So it started then. And as soon as I knew that it was happening, I tried to get help right away. That was when I got a private occupational therapist involved, who did, you know, I paid out of pocket for a full evaluation. And that's the time that we found out when it was the sensory integration, the sensory processing integration issues, and in all 5 senses. He had dysregulation in all 5 senses. And so that was one of the reasons, you know, she attributed these meltdowns to, that by the end of the school day, his little sensory everything was so overwhelmed that he would just lose his mind and couldn't keep it together. You know, but it was later on that, you know, the ADHD diagnosis happened in about 3rd grade. And so that also, you know, that can be on a spectrum, right? But it was so severe with it was all of the emotional dysregulation, and the meltdowns, and the constant, like, you feel like you're just walking on eggshells all the time, because just saying, hey, go brush your teeth and get ready for bed could like trigger this World War III level event where holes were made in closet doors. Because he just would, you know, just get so mad if you tried to say, it wasn't the initial go do that thing. It was when you'd ask him to go do it, and then he wouldn't do it. And then you'd remind him, and then the anger. And then once that anger was going, there was no reining it back in. And all of the therapists, counselors, and all of that, it was to try to, you know, train him to, like, when you're starting to escalate, here is how you rein it in. That's the nitty gritty of what they were trying to teach both of us to do. And we never had success. And so we're talking, I had the same comment, Adrian, and from family members. Like, I had a very painful event in my own family with my family members, you know, telling me that it was my parenting, my bad parenting. And I spent hours every day trying to find strategies, putting money into experts and specialists and doctors and everything else to try to find a solution. And I just never, ever looked at diet, because none of the experts, at least to this point, have said that diet is a thing. I am going to put a link into the chat right now. This is to an interview that Dr. Georgia E. did on Diary of a CEO. And if you go about an hour in, she does this whole thing on ADHD. And he even says, like, you know, the mainstream, they don't tell you diet. They don't recommend diet. They just say there's really not enough information, so don't even try it. And Dr. Georgia E's answer is beautiful when he says that, because she talks about those stimulant medications, they do, for the people they work for, they work well, but is that really what you want to do to a child? You know, put them on these stimulant medications with these potentially, you know, super harsh side effects, when even though there's no studies yet, and she has 2 slated for this year, ketogenic diet and ADHD, in adults, mind you, but, you know, 2 studies slated through 2 different universities that she's going to be involved in starting up this year. So I'm very excited to see those results. But as of right now, they don't recommend diet. And back then I wasn't clued into diet, right? At that time in my life, I was just looking at it as calories, right? Like, to me, for me at that point, some M&Ms and a Diet Coke had the same calories as a dinner, so I might as well eat the M&Ms if I wanted them. I had no clue. I was so uneducated as far as the diet end of it. I really was going down all of these paths of, the experts, and none of them said diet to me, and I had no other reason to even look at it. And so, but I will tell you that my son had 3 or 4 of these severe meltdowns, and I mean severe, and they would last for hours. We're not talking a 5 minute, let me just cry for 5 minutes. And no, I'm talking hours, like the entire evening. Because it was usually after school, and the entire evening would be involved in one of these meltdown events. And I use the word event on purpose. Like it was an event. Like that was our night, right? And then we'd go to bed exhausted, and then we'd wake up, and then hopefully the next day there wouldn't be another one. And it was exhausting. It was emotionally just draining. I didn't really have, I went into it thinking, okay, this is something we can fix. But after, 2 years, 4 years, 8 years going by, and there was no changes, the meltdowns up till last year when he started Carnivore, were just as frequent. When he was 14 and 15 years old, he was still doing this. And as he got bigger, older and bigger, and he became bigger and stronger than me, there was some serious concerns there about safety in the home and things like that, because he just would lose it and not really be in control of himself anymore. And so it was very, and I saw that coming. So it was a lot of years of like worry and concern over what's going to happen as he just keeps getting bigger and bigger. He's going to outgrow me. And then what? Right. I had that thought constantly on the mind. I got a lot better at controlling my own emotions, because I learned that if you get emotional during those situations, it certainly does not help, so just trying to like parent them into stopping didn't work. So, that's, I know I tend to ramble long, because I just want people to understand like what we were dealing with. And I'm very sorry that, because I'm glad that we met, but I'm sorry that you're dealing with a similar situation sometimes with your son, because it was not easy at all. And it was very emotionally taxing and disheartening and confusing and, all of that. So
I'm a crier. I wanted these kids so bad. And then I get my first son, who has, I think, maybe a different version of whatever Porter has. Even though this whole time I am trying to eat whole foods my whole pregnancy, even though I'm eating all the healthy stuff, and I'm taking all the vitamins, and I'm taking all the shots, and I'm taking all the medication that they're giving me. I'm going to the classes, I'm reading the books, I'm Googling online. I won't let people come over because, oh my gosh, if someone kisses my baby, they might catch a virus. We're doing so much to protect them. And then they come out, and this is happening more and more and more and more and more and more, that these parents are struggling. And then we have an older generation saying things like, oh, we had that too, we just knew how to handle it. And you're like, you know and it's there's no passion, there's no compassion for these parents there's millions of us, it's not just us, there's millions of us who are struggling and just want to help our kids. That's all we want, is to help our kids and have healthy kids. And like, too, with me, so Porter was born in 2019, so his first year is COVID. So me and him are stuck in a house together, and we started taking in like pipeline families. And there was one that had a little girl that was just a few months older than Porter. And I thought, perfect, he needs to be socialized. Because I thought maybe the problem was socialization. Maybe that's the problem, because this stupid virus that he just, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. This is my first kid at home. And he just keeps beating this girl up. He just keeps tackling her, beating her up. It's like he's not even there. You look him in the, you can't stop him, because he's like in this little mission. He's in this little fog of aggressiveness. And I would just spend my whole day redirect, yell, yell. I tried all the things. I spent like weeks on this. And eventually I had to tell my roommate, I need you guys to stay downstairs, because we had 2 floors, because we need a break. And I don't think this is healthy for him. But it took me weeks for me to figure out. And I actually might go with months. I don't remember how I want to say it might be months, where I was finally like, listen, I've been just, everything this kid does is wrong, and that can't be healthy for him. That everything he does is wrong, and that
Mhm.
I'm spending his whole life punishing him and redirecting him and telling him that he's wrong. Um, his behavior was so aggressive, even in preschool. I pulled out like, it's traumatizing when like every day you get a letter from the school that
Yep.
has like a whole book on it of all the horrible things that your son did to other kids that day. And you're like, I don't know what to do because I'm not in the classroom, so I can't sit there and hold him and redirect him in your classroom. I don't know. Like, we tell him at home, don't touch other people, keep your hands
Mhm.
to yourself, and he can't. Now, one thing, I did have a flag. When Vollmer was born, Porter was just turning 3, and we had a body worker that I trust, a family friend, come in, and she felt Porter and how tight he was, and she saw some of his behaviors, and she told me, she said, Porter has autism.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense because my older son is kind of autistic and he's totally different. Like, he didn't talk, he didn't touch people, and he just cried all the time. But this kid is like very active and wants to be around other kids, but he's very aggressive. Like, totally opposite. Totally opposite. I don't understand. This doesn't look the same. And so I didn't know what to do, but yeah, he has no boundaries. When we go trick or treating, he will literally just run through people's yards and go into their house and then take handfuls. And I expect that from like a 2-year-old who doesn't understand, but like an almost 6-year-old who just doesn't comprehend boundaries at all. Like he wasn't trying to be a bad kid. He just really doesn't understand boundaries. And so
Mhm.
he's just like literally running in people's houses and taking all of their candy. You think that's cute, but it's like kind of hard on a mama's heart to see my 3-year-old, not even 3 yet. He is walking on the sidewalk and saying, trick or treat. And then he gets one piece of candy, he says, thank you. And then he turns
Mhm.
around and he walks on the sidewalk again. And then you have
Mhm.
the 6-year-old that's not at the same comprehension of boundary as the 2-year-old. So it's very
Yeah.
concerning. He has a lot of other, he was very obsessive, like Blippi, 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 Blippi. And then when it was Paw Patrol, every single second of every single day was, I want the Paw Patrol tower, I want the Paw Patrol tower, I want the Paw Patrol tower. We couldn't talk about anything except the Paw Patrol tower. And it was like obsessive. You know, there's excitement. I love Spider-Man. Spider-Man's so cool. Let's get a Spider-Man costume. And then there's obsessive. It's totally different. So anyway, and then like you were saying, like an inability to get him to do anything. I mean, to this day, I'm still struggling, but it's getting better. But just, you know, you could tell him, okay, put your shoe on, and he won't do it. It's like, I mean, we've actually had his hearing tested because he won't even look at you. He won't even register you're talking to him. You could literally get in his face and say, put your shoe on, and he still won't do it. He can't follow direction. I don't know. It's very weird. And then there's the spinning and the humming, and he always has to make noise, and there's just so many symptoms for this guy. So we have pretty much fed him a very whole foods diet his whole life, but we did switch him to more meat based, and that was going great until school started. And
Mm.
that's when he, like, I was sending him with his usual, like, we eat a lot of eggs, we eat a lot of steak, we eat a lot of beef sticks. I don't eat beef sticks, but they love beef sticks. I send like yogurt, like high fat, low sugar yogurt. But all of a sudden, once school started in kindergarten this year, we don't have a hot lunch program. It's a small little school, so we have to send our food, and he started refusing to eat the lunches, and so they just, and I just keep sending them. So now I've, you know, adding a little bit more fruit, adding a Quest chip, adding a Quest cookie. I don't want to give him processed foods, but I also need him to eat, and I also don't want to create a thing in his brain of good food, bad food, I'm different. I don't know. Like, we're working on that. We've always harped in. He knows steak is more healthy for him. He knows. He knows he's
Mm.
going to be stronger. He knows he's going to be, maybe his brain is going to be bigger. He knows that, but he still sees like his friends have like a cookie and a sandwich with bread, and he really likes bread. Back to my husband sending the donuts, just in his defense, like, he was in panic mode. Like, I handle everything. So to leave him and be like, good luck, everyone, and he's got to get kids to 4 different places and lunches, and yeah, he was in panic mode.
There, now we've got all 3 lionesses on the screen. Hi, Ellie. A few people popped in. Lindy popped in. Hi, Lindy. Brett popped in. Hi, Brett. Nice to see all of you out there. So, you know, my son, gosh, when you bring up those points about going to school and the difficulty, I try to imagine it. And I teach in a school and there's just like junk food every which way. And the kids aren't supposed to share food, but we all know they do. The district has a wellness policy and there's not supposed to be birthday cupcakes, but we all know what happens. The amount of candy flowing through my room on Valentine's Day was criminal. So we all know it's there. So I can't imagine my son being like 6, right? And just like, well, I'm not going to eat that candy. You know, like if the kids are passing out candy, I can imagine that would be difficult. I think that is a blessing, with my son being, you know, he started at 15 and he's now 16. So I had to ask him. I couldn't just send him a lunch and be like, this is what you're eating. That was the, you know, the downside of it because he was older. And, you know, I got his agreement for 30 days and he really just jumped in with both feet. I did do a lot of recipes. They're on my channel, for things that he doesn't even eat anymore, but like to get him through that transition. So I'm not like, okay, you were eating pizza pockets and Doritos and now you're going to eat ribeyes. Like that is not, that was not going to be successful, especially with his sensory issues. And he had huge, he still has texture issues with the mouth. Like he's very particular about his food and what's gonna what he will be willing to eat if something has a different texture that he's like. I made chuck roast, which is one of his favorites, but I put less water in there so it got this like crispiness to it, which to me seemed like that would be delicious. And he was like, this is gross, like I can't eat this, it's weird, Mom. So my husband and I finished that off and I made him another one. Like, well, I have to put water and it has to stay soft is my point. And then he'll eat it. So it's things like that still happen. That was like 2-3 weeks ago, with the chuck roast because the texture was crispy and he just wasn't having that. But anyway, I digress. We started him on things like carnivore chicken nuggets that I made myself because he was used to eating, you know, the frozen chicken nuggets. We did carnivore pizza pockets. That is one of the things he will still eat, but now probably not even once a week. He started off eating them 4 to 5 nights a week. We started with carnivore pancakes or protein pancakes made with eggs and cream cheese and some of the beef protein powder in there. And now he just eats like eggs and sausage, right? So he's just transitioned. And can I just tell you that in the last year, which it's been a year, February 1st of 2024 is when he started. And I'm not kidding. He would have still 2 to 3 meltdowns a week, probably by the time we started the diet. And he's had 1 meltdown in this entire year. 1, the whole year.
Wow.
1, the whole year. So his ability to listen to what's going on around him, right? They're still adults. He's 16, but they're still, you know, obviously he's not 18 yet and he's still in high school. And there's me and his dad and his teachers, you know, telling him to do stuff. And it doesn't mean he's going to do it. A lot of times he will do it. If it's schoolwork, he might not do it still, but he's not going to melt down over it. And he's not going to throw a fit about it. And if you remind him to do it, you know, he might do it, or he might just passive aggressively not do it when it comes to schoolwork, but he's not going to pitch a fit, you know, punch a wall, yell, scream, get physical, the whole meltdown thing, right? He very rarely gets upset. And when he does, you know, there was one time he was starting to get upset and I was like, hey, let's just take a break and talk about it later, because I could see that you're getting upset about this. And he was like, okay. And then he just went and took a break. Like if I had suggested a break when he was melting down before, you know, before changing the food, he would not have accepted that. He would have yelled and screamed about it, told me that he didn't need a break, or like, you never let me take a break. Like he would argue both sides of the same argument. And to him, it would seem rational, but really he wasn't making any sense. But yeah, he just agreed to like take a break. And then like the next day or 2 days later, we discussed it, and the issue was resolved. So that is to me, like a switch flipped. I just went on, although I didn't go into detail about the meltdowns, but I did Dr. Kiltz's live Zoom call on Monday of this week with his Mighty Tribe members. And, Dr. Kiltz asked me, do you think this is just because he, grew up and matured? And it's so funny. I know that was like a loaded question. That's clearly not what it was, because, he had been doing these same melting down, emotionally dysregulated behaviors from the age of 2 to the age of 15. And then we changed his food, and yep, we did do it on February 1st. We just started up with basically 98% carnivore, high fat, and it was like instantly he had one meltdown in the whole year, and it wasn't toward the beginning. It was like a few months ago. It was like maybe 3/4 of the way through. So something upset him, and he had a moment. But one in a year, as opposed to 2, 3, and when he was younger, 4 a week, is a drastic change. And that was when we tried every intervention under the sun besides diet. Nothing even slowed him down in terms of his emotional reactions to things. Nothing. Not even a little bit. It just made him madder. He didn't like that we were messing with him, right? That's how he looked at it. Like, just leave me alone. And so it was like, I couldn't even believe, the changes that I was seeing and how quickly they occurred. Now, I know your son probably has some more, like you talked about, the other environmental factors. I feel very blessed that the food, which was a huge factor, seems to be the main factor for my son, because it's just made this like night and day difference. It's kind of sad that other parents that I can't say a ton as a teacher, but I've mentioned, diet, and they just, I can't really talk about it in detail. I don't really think they fully understand, what a high fat, like you said, eggs, red meat. Like, I think they don't. They just think that that's insane. They don't understand. And even me telling my experience, it doesn't compute, which I think is sad.
I say that we've had him on a whole foods diet, but there was one thing that I did that is just so unbelievably cringy. Are you ready? You know how they say, oh, kids don't need the breast milk or the formula starting at 1 year old, which now that we look into primal health, that is insane. That's insane. Well, at 1, then we switched him to water with a little bit of apple juice. So every bottle had like an ounce of apple juice in it. And so he was drinking, even though it's watered down, he's still drinking sugar. So that was the one thing that was like, I cannot believe we did that. Anyway,
my kids drank a lot of apple juice too.
I think that I was too, giving I was allowing a whole lot more treats until I went carnivore. Like, a whole lot more treats were allowed, even though we were still trying to eat whole foods. It was still, oh, it's just a treat. Except when you have kids, there's always an excuse for a treat, like always. And then all that stuff comes home from school. There's always a party. There's always a birthday. There's always, so these days, I don't know a night and day difference. However, but adding the food, the problem is when we subtract the problem is when we add other things. So like, he's having a tough week. Is it because he has a huge bag of Halloween candy or Valentine's candy? Is that why he's having a hard week? And he's all of a sudden spinning, and he's all of a sudden he can't be directed again because he's been eating candy. That's the type of thing. My daughter, she doesn't have the same issues, but like, you can tell when she is sugar crashing. She's literally like jonesing for sugar, and it makes her so crabby. And she's 12. So like, and then I share custody of my 12 and 13-year-old. So I don't get to choose what they eat at dad's house. Now my 13-year-old, he's probably 250. He doesn't want to be big, and he wants to be smart, and he also wants to please his mom. So eats meat and he loves meat and he chooses it and he eats a lot of cheese. And then I know that this is a little bit inflammatory, but he loves pistachios. So this is like the guy is eating meat, cheese, and pistachios. Like he's not eating pizzas and junk food and he's still struggling. So for him, we need some more tickets. But I wanted to bring up one thing you said, which was, did he just grow up and mature? When we
Yeah.
moved into this house, Porter, I mean, we've gotten 2 reports. Either the teacher got sick of writing them or he's doing better. We've gotten like maybe 2 reports and they were while I was gone, which mom is gone and he's eating donuts, you know? So the environment for Porter has been a really big deal as well. But no matter what, I don't, you know, no matter what, if you have a kid with some unnatural problems, I'm going to say unnatural. They're not genetic, I don't think. I think we're all struggling with whatever's going on in our world that we can't really control. So hopefully, like people say, not to get political, but hopefully the administration that's made a lot of promises, I hope that they follow through and they get rid of some of these things that are cancer causing, inflammatory and disease causing, autoimmune causing. But in the meantime, anyway, no matter what, going back to primal eating, you just can't get a better base than that. And you can go from there. At least you can see when you bring it down to base what could be affecting your kid. Otherwise, you don't know. And you probably just think it's a fluke and it's not fixable. But if you bring us back down to base and then you start seeing them just really calming down, now you can add things back and see what is affecting them. I mean, we don't have that much control with all the school environment and stuff like that, but can I tell you one more thing? I
Yeah.
love to say this. People say, oh my gosh, if you just feed your kids a keto or carnivore diet, they're going to become so disordered. I hear this all the time. In the case of our kids who are going to standard school, yeah, I mean, we have to learn a way to message it in a way that's not going to harm their food thought. For example, when I was growing up and I was overweight and I was told I ate too much, like, don't tell a kid they ate too much. Like, kids should be full. You need to give them foods that are filling them. And to tell a child, well, you're not allowed to eat because you're fat, but everybody else can. And you should always leave the table hungry. And what, you're still hungry? There's something wrong with you. Like that starts bad thoughts. And we can do that same thing with the foods that they're seeing everybody else eating. We can start creating some really negative food relationships. But I had a friend who homeschooled her kids, didn't give them gluten, got just like they grew stuff, they hunted, and the kids, their whole life, that's what they ate was non-processed, no seed oils their whole life. And I know these guys now, these kids now, they're in their 20s, and my husband will take them out to eat and be like, come on, have some French fries. And they will, and then they will go, oh, why do you eat this? This makes me feel like crap. They are
Yeah.
not disordered in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, they're incredibly strong, incredibly smart, incredibly hardworking. They have no fatigue at all. Like they work like they're like crazy strong and athletic and endured because their metabolism is amazing because they're not being slowed down by years and years and years of processed food and all the garbage. So I just want to throw that out there that if there's a way for you to perfectly control the environment that the kids are exposed to, it actually turns out to be this amazing thing for their body, not a disordered thing at all.
I agree with that. And I think in my particular case, I think there was such a positive benefit to the way that he feels. That's what
So that
and
worked.
I think it works for him. So he has no desire to eat anything else. If he's going to do an event like a school event, we'll just talk about it ahead of time. I don't even ask. I used to ask him at the beginning. Now it's like, hey, he might tell me like, oh, I have this going on. Can you pack me like a double lunch? I'll just make him twice because he's going to stay at school until let's say 7 p.m. or something, and I'll just pack him basically like 2 lunches so he'll have enough to eat. He doesn't feel tempted or something by all of the pizza and processed food and the junk. I went to all the games. You see what those kids are eating. They had pizzas delivered to the football field. They've got big bags of chips. They've got energy drinks. They've got, all this stuff. And there's my kid with his electrolytes, with his keto chow electrolytes, happy as can be, not eating anything because he probably ate before, the double lunch that I packed him. He just eats some at lunchtime and then some right before the game, and then he'll eat after he gets, home. But he's not like looking at that pizza or like wishing he could have it. It's I'm very fortunate in that regard that he, I think, notices the benefits. It really just, like you said, that those kids of your friend, they're like, why do you eat that stuff? I really think that he sort of feels that way now. Like he has no desire to eat it because he knows how he felt for the first 15 years of his life. Because he was you talked about the treats, that was built into his day, man. After dinner, there'd be dessert every day, And now I don't say no dessert. I have some protein like cookies. They're like made with the beef isolate protein, and he'll have one of those occasionally. They're in the freezer. Like I'll make a batch and there'll be like 8 or 9 cookies in the freezer and that will last over a month. Because occasionally, and no one else eats them, they're just for him. And occasionally he'll just go take one. But before this, he was eating like he was just having a giant bowl of ice cream, at not keto ice cream, not carnivore ice cream, like store-bought, processed, not even real ice cream with chemicals and whatever, every night, he would have that, a big bowl of it or whatever. That was usually his go-to thing because like I said, with the texture, but, I think part of it was I was not like, okay, like I said, you're not going to go from standard American, highly processed to like, you're only eating ribeyes, like you're only doing lion. Like we didn't do that. And I'm still not like all you're going to put in your mouth is meat. Like I said, I have those, we went through a process. I even tried like different keto ice creams and he didn't really like any of them because I thought ice cream was his thing. And I got the whole Ninja Creamy. I liked them. I tried them. I'm like, okay, this one's good. What do you think? He didn't like it. And so we kind of settled on these cookies and I just have those for him when he does feel like he wants a treat. He'll go and just take it. It's so funny because they're like, I mean, this is not, you can't, they're maybe 2.5 to 3 inches, across, and he'll just go take one. He doesn't go get a second one. He goes and takes one. And he's just able to moderate like that with that kind of a thing. And like I said, it's made with, I make them, they're clean. There's eggs, there's butter, there's Equip Prime protein powder in there. There is some like some cocoa powder, some sweetener, and then some sugar-free like chocolate chips. And that's basically what they're made of. But I've never said you can never have anything sweet ever again. Like that's not going to work for him. And I think he was able to switch his metabolism very quickly, because he was so young and he didn't have a chance to completely wreck it, like I did. He eats anywhere from 2 to 3 times a day, depending on what he's doing. Like on a school day, he'll eat 3 times because he's up early, right? So I'll make him breakfast. It's usually eggs and sausage. Lunch is like a beef, a grass-fed beef sausage and some cheese chunks and some pepperoni. And then dinner is like some chuck roast or some chicken thighs or some picanha. But then like this week, we have off the whole week. We haven't been at school this week. And he'll just eat twice a day because he sleeps in a little bit and he'll eat like a big thing of eggs. He'll have a bigger breakfast, like more eggs, right? But he won't eat till 10 or 11 in the morning. And then he'll eat dinner just whenever he gets hungry. I always have, like right now, there's chuck roast in there. He'll just go heat himself up some when he gets hungry. I think it helps that although probably for family reasons, I know like sit down at the dinner table. My family did that. We don't really do that. My husband works afternoons and evenings. He won't even, I won't see him tonight. He leaves at like 1 in the afternoon and then gets home after I'm in bed. So our schedules don't like mesh up to all eat together. So it's kind of like you just eat when you're hungry around here. And I think that helps. And so he'll eat either 2 or 3 times a day, depending, but that just kind of happened naturally. He doesn't really snack. Like he used to. And let me tell you, the kids at school eat like 6 times a day because heaven forbid, and we now have breakfast served at school, but it's like not first thing in the morning. It's like at 9:30, so a lot of them eat before school, then they eat at 9:30, then they eat at lunchtime, which is like 11:45. And then right after school, especially we have 2 different after school programs, which they feed them a snack. That's the very first thing they do. So at 2:15, 2:30, whatever, it probably takes a little time. Probably around 2:30, they're fed a snack. And then who knows what they do when they get home. But I know for sure at school, especially if they come to our after school programs, they're already being fed 3 times a day. Plus they're bringing stuff from home. And they've already eaten at least 3 times by the time it's, 2:30 in the afternoon. And that's just what the school is giving them. That doesn't include because they bring stuff, right? And they have it. I see it out all the time, the junk food, the candy and the chips and stuff, but he just kind of naturally does that. Limit, he just eats when he's hungry, which is 2 or 3 times a day. And I think that's fantastic. And so I would like to share some of the other benefits. So Adrian, I know you've heard this before, but if you're watching us right now and you haven't heard this before, besides the fits or the meltdowns, I don't want to call them fits, they were meltdowns. Besides them just basically stopping like a switch being flipped, about 2 weeks in, I don't really think that had occurred to me yet. He just started bringing trash bags full of trash out of his room, and he had 13 or 14 kitchen-sized bags of trash that he brought out of his room, and then he proceeded to organize his room. It was a pretty big project, and so he did the lion's share of it on one day, but then he wrapped it up on a couple of subsequent Saturdays, and ever since then he'll just every so often spend a few hours just kind of straightening up and cleaning his room. That used to be a battle I would fight when he was little, because it was you're supposed to keep a clean room. That's how I was raised, clean your room. That was a thing we had to do. And that would turn into a nightmare. And so it was something that I stopped fighting when he was 7 or 8 years old, but we had several knockdown, drag out meltdowns over the cleaning of the room. And then I stopped fighting it. And then the reason it was so many trash bags is because all of the stuff just piled up in there. But it was all of a sudden he could just organize his thoughts. He could look at that task, which before had seemed overwhelming. Even when I had been in the room with him to try to chunk it into okay, now put the Legos away. Now let's put the cars away. Chunking, that's a strategy, right? For ADHD kiddos. He still just he would just sit there. He would just be looking at all the stuff and just be overwhelmed and not be able to do it. And without me telling him, I didn't tell him, I was just sitting on the couch minding my business. And here he comes, with all just bag after bag after bag. And he was able to actually throw it away. Whereas before, he would not let me throw anything away. I had to sneakily throw stuff away. And if he discovered that I had thrown it away, he would get really angry. And I'm talking about stuff that wasn't it was a box that something came in. And heaven forbid I should throw that box away. Other people would consider it trash, right? And he wanted to hold on to it and not let me get rid of it. And he was just able to discern okay, these things are trash, these things I'm keeping. His room is now organized under the bed. There's not anything under his bed. His closet is clean. All those places used to be crammed full. He couldn't even hang clothes in his closet because it was as high as it would stack in there. It's all cleaned out. It is able to be used for that now. That was the first thing we noticed, or I noticed that he all of a sudden did. And then it was all of these other things, becoming more social, hanging out more with kids outside of school, inviting kids over, or accepting invitations to go do things. He's never done that his whole life. And all of a sudden, now he's I could probably count on one hand the amount of invitations he accepted from the time he was, little till the time he was 15. And now he's done multiple things over the last year, everything from school dances to trick-or-treating with friends to just, I'm going to go over to so-and-so's house and hang out. And he just never used to do any of that before. And then just being on time for school, that was a huge issue. I would be majorly stressed out. One or both of us would be crying every morning. And if I wasn't crying, I wanted to cry. Sometimes after I would drop him off, then I would cry. After he was gone, then it would cry, because it was so difficult getting him ready and out the door. And now he knows what time he's supposed to be in the car. And within a few minutes, he's just in the car. Like I can just go to his room. I hand him his electrolytes for the day. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go start up the car. And then within a few minutes, there he is in the car ready to go. He has started recognizing, I think, how his behavior and things he does affect others. So like just the other day, I was having a hard time. It was a personal thing. It was something at work. I had an issue with a parent. It was pretty bad. I don't want to say anything further than that. But it was pretty bad. And Zach said something minor, like it was minor. I don't even remember what it was. But because I was already emotionally raw from this other thing, I think he just looked at my face. Like I wasn't crying and I didn't like snap at him or anything. But as he was getting out of the car, he turned and looked at my face. And I think he just noticed that I was upset. This is so crazy to me because this has never happened before in his life. And then he said, like, I'm really sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to make you feel bad. And he has never been able to recognize the emotions of others and then go, oh, like,
Yes.
oh, they're feeling bad. Like, I need to try to make them feel better. Like, what? I mean, it was so like, then I wanted to cry because he said that to me, right? He brought me a flower on Valentine's Day. That stuff never happened, you know? And it's just all these like loving gestures. Cause like I said at the beginning of this, like, pictures of him, he is this loving kid, right? But none of that could ever come out. And it was always overshadowed by these incidents and whatever was in his brain, like not allowing him to let that stuff show. And now, you know, that's not the first apology. Like he would never apologize. He has called me every name in the book and without ever apologizing for it. And now like he didn't even really do anything wrong, but he saw that I was upset and he was worried that maybe he caused that and with the apology. Or like he was 3 minutes late coming to the car. Sorry, I'm late, Mom. Like I could not, he could be 30 minutes late and, you know, blaming me. He could be 30 minutes late. Like I'm not going to make it to school on time. My fellow teachers would have to take my class for the first few minutes of PE because I wasn't going to get there on time because of him. And he would be blaming me like it's my fault that, you know, he wasn't getting dressed and he wasn't, you know, coming to the car. And that's totally switched. Like if he's even a few minutes late now, it's like, sorry, I'm late. He'll tell me like, oh, I couldn't find my glasses. Sorry, or whatever. And it's just like calm. It's not, you know, you probably moved my glasses and that's why I couldn't find them. And that's why, you know, which is how it.
Or
So
you touched my this, you touched my that.
Yeah.
You're making me think of so many things that you're just making me recognize of what's been going on over here. And like, so we're coupling the food and the home in our case. And he has become so kind, Porter, and so sweet. And all of a sudden he has girlfriends and he's so excited about his girl and he actually cares about other people. I don't know how to say that, but like before it was like, you know, he was just so in his own little zone, like Sonic the Hedgehog, that there was no really concentrating on what's going on with other people and their feelings. And now then he'll say sorry. And we are almost on time now. We used to be really, really late all the time, and now we're almost on time a lot. For my David, I would say his biggest thing is that he gets to be full. That poor guy with his busted metabolism, his busted hormone signaling, he just doesn't get to be full. And then Grace, she's not complying. She could really use some carnivore. She could really use some keto. She could use some meat and cut the rest. And then my Valmer, he has eaten meat his whole life. And people say all the time, he is the smartest kid. Hold on. I gotta let him in.
Yeah, let him in.
Come here.
Oh my God, you're done.
I'm not done, but go ahead and let that guy in. Do you want to be on YouTube? Oh, geez, he's naked. We'll just keep him down here. Can you say hi, YouTube? Hi. He is just the smartest kid. He was the easiest kid to potty train. He can have full conversations with you. He can tell you all about fishing. Have you ever gone fishing?
Yeah.
What did you catch?
A shark.
You caught a shark. He's creative.
Shay.
So there's no doubt, at a minimum, it is a tool in the toolbox that just, it's a baseline. It's got to be there. It's such a good one. If you're feeding your kids chemicals and carbohydrates and it's causing them sugar crashes and insulin resistance that's inflaming their whole entire body, it's not going to help them feel better, be successful. You know, if your kid's real brain foggy, this can really, really help. If your kid's got skin issues, this can really help. If your kid's got weight issues, this can really help. It's a baseline tool for so many things. Let's just go back to some primal eating. You know, other things we do with the kids, we try to, when it gets nice out, it's like -40 right now. We try to walk in the sun. We try to get our fresh air. You know, we try to be outside as much as possible. We try to reduce our electronics time. I'm not perfect at it. I'm not going to lie. I started a website that's coming up, you guys, radicallyhealthy.com. It's not ready yet, but go there soon, for group coaching. You know, so there's been some electronic time, but we really try to limit it. We really should turn these lights off. I'm ordering my red light bulbs now, today.
Oh, that's
so that
awesome.
at this time of night, you can really tone it down, and have better light. So
Yeah.
This has been an awesome conversation.
I've had the best time. I feel like we could even have like a part 2 because all the stuff you just said, I see in the classroom. Like I see more kids overweight. I see kids, I mean, they're 10 and 11 years old, right? With, you can see.
Go pee.
Oh no.
Wrong hand. Sorry. Oh my gosh, we're so in trouble. Hold on.
Well, there's nothing like live YouTube, folks. Anyway, I see it every day with the signs and symptoms of insulin resistance, and it's like I wish that I could just like. You got a naked boy coming out there.
Good one. Okay, go
oh my goodness. I see it every day at school with the signs of insulin resistance, and I wish that I could just change their diet. I wish that I could just feed them all, and make those changes for those kids. But you know, it's conversations like this that I think hopefully, you know, the right person is gonna see this and it can make a difference for a kiddo. So it looks like Adrian. Oh, there she is. I was just gonna sign off without you, but anyway, we see you. Are you there? I don't think she hears me anymore. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. And we will catch you next time. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with kids, diet, and hey, can carnivore help your kids focus? Bye, everybody.